We have a conversation with Pennsylvania's acting Secretary of Education on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. Well, hello everybody, I'm Mark Despotakis. Welcome to this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast, another edition on the road. We are in the beautiful Forum building here in Harrisburg, and lucky today to have a very special guest with us, Pennsylvania's Acting Secretary of Education, Dr. Carrie Rowe. Dr. Rowe, thanks for being with us.
It is an absolute pleasure. It's great to be here.
We know back to school time is very busy for you, so we appreciate you taking some time to talk to us. So let me level set quickly before we go into this. You know, you Spanish teacher, superintendent, worked here in the department, acting secretary. So you have the whole perspective of what education is like. So we appreciate that as educators are watching this. I am curious though, to start off with.
Okay.
Any background in music or arts education? Any experience in that?
Yeah, I was actually really lucky to go to a Pennsylvania public school district that had a rich music tradition. I really wanted to play the drums. I still think my parents paid the music teacher off to say that they didn't need any more drummers, but that's probably a different podcast. So. A slight sidestep, one of my earliest memories related to music is seeing the Preservation Hall Jazz Band live. And so I think that influenced my decision then to play the trombone. It kind of changed everything. I got to see in that one, I hate to even say that it was a concert because it really brought each of the players to life. And I wanted to step into that. And so in middle school and high school, I was in every ensemble that there was, from jazz band and marching band and concert band, and also played in the orchestra. So I think I had that growing up, and felt that it really helped me be a more creative person, understand teamwork, and how missing a note could really matter, quite literally. And then I was so lucky to be surrounded by great music educators as a teacher and a principal and a superintendent. One of those music teachers was actually Susan Metelsky, who earned a citation of excellence from PMEA, and I think that was somewhere around 2020 when I was superintendent. So just really surrounded by great music educators who never let music take a back seat, really helped to bring music in particular to be thought of as part of the core curriculum and not an add-on. So
I will say your credibility went sky high with me as soon as you said marching band.
Okay.
Because I'm a big marching band person. Anyone who watches the podcast knows that. But so you're already high on my list, but that went. But to the point is, I mean, you get it.
Yeah.
You did it, and you saw also what teachers were doing and how that really impacts students, and that's crucial.
Absolutely. And I don't know how far back your love of marching band goes, but it was my introduction to marching band was with Mr. Gary, and he was the marching band director, and also all of the other things related to band, was the director for those. And really, again, made the whole experience come alive. So this is kind of the new name dropping that I get to do.
Yeah.
Right? It's the teachers who really made a difference in my life, and getting to say their name again.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so from your perspective, it's so many different levels here, from student to educator to administrator to now at this level. What does a good music and arts education program look like?
Yeah, well, I think one that's not just about the learning the learning scales, or it's not just about the music that's on the page, or the brush strokes that are part of the art project.
I was going to say brush strokes like a percussionist. I thought you were bringing out your percussion.
Yes.
Okay.
Way to reopen the wound, right? But it's about having this space to creatively express themselves and find that place of belonging. I got to see it several times with students where they perhaps weren't as strong in what we would generally refer to as the core subjects, but you put them in a studio, or you put them on a stage, and they shine. And that's a whole lot of what education is about, and certainly it's what makes for a great music program, making sure that things aren't siloed. As I mentioned earlier, making sure that we're keeping music as part of the overall conversation. If a school district, for example, has or any school has an instructional cabinet, are the music teachers part of it? Are the arts teachers part of it? And they should be, in more than just considering it as enrichment, but rather something that really adds to literacy and their ability to do math and social emotional growth, all of those things that we're really looking for in education in general, absolutely fit within the music as well.
I really appreciate your comment there about siloing, to make sure that we are not doing that, because for so long in education, we have done that, and there was a bit of a sea change years ago when ESSA, redefined core subjects to well-rounded, and we got that word music in there, but other words, physical education is in there, and it to the point of realizing, yes, everything is important for these students if we truly want well-rounded. What a perfect, word for it. That's what we should be doing in education.
That's right.
And I appreciate that you pointed that out there. So we know funding issues are probably more relevant than ever for schools. There's a lot of inequities and access to music and arts programs, and maybe that goes back to that siloing piece. So right now we're at a place where the state budget is in progress. There are threats to federal funding, a court decision saying, hey, we got to put more money into schools in Pennsylvania. That's a lot.
Right.
That is a lot. How do schools and teachers navigate this ongoing problem? Because this just isn't a 2025 problem. This is an ongoing problem. How do schools and teachers navigate this? And then particularly as that relates to maybe those siloed music and arts programs?
Ooh, that's a lot. I think you're right to say that that funding is at the center of things right now, between a state budget that at the point of this podcast hasn't passed yet, and that wouldn't allow federal funds to flow. I think schools, and also I think you mentioned some of the court decisions in Pennsylvania hasn't allowed funding to flow, and schools are starting to feel that pressure. What I've seen is that strong programs and really are able to flourish when school leaders and teachers keep music and the arts at the center of the conversation, when they don't allow it to be something that is seen as extra or an add-on, but rather something that's academic. And so schools, I think, or school leaders and teachers can do themselves a world of good by keeping that conversation flowing about the benefits of the arts, not just as enrichment, but as academic, so that we can keep things moving. And I think my commitment at the Department of Education at the state level is to make sure that all students have access to quality music and arts programs, And in this case, again, equity doesn't just mean the basics. It has to mean all of these other experiences that are part of what helps students to thrive and become adults that are inspired to continue to grow.
Yeah, I appreciate that commitment, and the department over the past several years really has had that type of commitment to say we are all of these subjects are part of education, and we really appreciate that. Just so you know, those of us on the ground. So music and the arts, and areas that have always celebrated and taught about diverse cultures. And I'm sure you did that as a Spanish teacher, and you taught a lot about those things. And maybe there was even some music in those Spanish.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
Luckily, there was no podcasting at that time, so there's no evidence to suggest that.
Okay. How do we continue to allow all children to thrive and receive an education that continues to celebrate different cultures?
I don't know that anything has changed here. We still want to bring in that diversity and equity into the curriculum, and I think music and the arts do that naturally. Anytime we're selecting our repertoire and our curriculum with the idea of not only building skill, but also building perspective, I think we're doing ourselves a real service, and it very naturally allows us to bring in representation of different voices. And while in some ways the national narrative around diversity has been something that's a little bit troublesome for teachers, or they feel like it might be problematic to bring that in, I think it's simply good education to allow students to see themselves represented in the classroom in what is taught and who is teaching it. So it's not political, it's just good education.
And I like the other piece of that that you pointed out, your teaching perspective too.
Right.
And that's crucial for all of us in our lives,
right,
political or not political.
You got it.
Okay, so let's talk a little about I'm rapid firing, you're hitting a lot of different areas. Let's move to the teaching workforce.
Okay.
So it's taken a hit for a variety of reasons. We could probably spend a whole podcast talking about what some of those reasons are, but it certainly hit every subject area at different levels, for sure. How do we continue to attract students to the teaching profession? And then while we're making sure the ones that are here are staying, and I guess what's the life cycle, right? How do we get them to want to do this? How do we make sure we're preparing them, and how do we keep them?
Wow! If I had the answer to that,
that's why I came to you.
Right? Okay. So maybe I do have. Okay. I have some of the answers, and I think it starts with the way that we talk about the profession. We need to talk about it in an uplifting way, and it can be a challenge. I know as teachers are going back to school, and they're experiencing 30 sets of eyes on them all day, and that changing at bells, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, but there is so much to love about teaching, and talking about it as a calling, I think, is important. Allowing people to get back to why they became a teacher and really stay in touch with what inspired them to do it, I think, is another piece that's particularly important. Apart from that kind of philosophical background, if we're looking for actual policy and what are we doing, kind of boots on the ground, we're doing everything from saying a student's financial capacity to pay for school shouldn't stand in the way of them actually becoming a teacher if that's something they want to do. So working with our State Board of Higher Education to make sure that college is something that is affordable is going to be particularly important. Our governor a couple of years ago put out the student teacher stipend for the first time, making sure that when a student is actually doing that student teaching, that it's also not a time where they can't pay their bills because they can't have another job at that time. So the student teacher stipend really is a nice step in the right direction. And then considering how do we keep quality at the forefront while we're also taking down some of the needless barriers. like a basic skills test that used to keep really good and really qualified people from even entering the College of Teaching at whatever university they were attending. So removing that barrier. And then I think you brought up something that was really interesting. I guess I'm kind of all over the place with this too, but you brought up something that was so interesting in your question that was about how do we keep people in the profession. And I think part of that goes to mentoring. Part of it is the formation of becoming a teacher, making sure we have quality programs. But then another portion of that is the mentoring that happens afterward. And I think it's one of the things that has brought me to the place that where I am is that I really stood on the shoulders of giants. At each level of my career, there was somebody there to mentor me through the great times and also the really tough times. And I think we owe that to our teachers because teaching is at once something that is a calling and wonderful, and also something that's very difficult to do on the day-to-day basis. I remember a colleague saying to me once, the years go by fast, it's the days that are long. And sometimes in education, that feels very true.
Right.
So those are some of the things that we're doing on the state level and a little bit of kind of the philosophical underpinnings of why we're doing it that way.
Yeah, and I would imagine for you as for so many other teachers or those in education that you can probably look back, just like you did with that music teacher, but you can probably look back to some other teachers and say, this is why I wanted to do education. And so I imagine there's names.
Absolutely.
But I also imagine even then, they had those challenging days too, but you as a student probably didn't see it.
Right. Or didn't realize I was part of it.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right. I wasn't going to accuse you.
I'm looking right into the camera for that, sorry.
But I think that's an important point then for students to remember, like look at who inspired you to want to do this, and maybe that's your mentor. As well. That's
absolutely.
Love that mentoring point.
Sometimes it's the mentors that we pick, and sometimes it's the mentors that pick us. And having both is so important throughout our careers. And I think it's what's important about organizations like your own, like PMEA, to say, here's a group of people who all are believing in the benefits of the arts in particular, but in music specifically, and what are they doing in their schools and how are they uplifting this noble profession. So having time to spend with each other, that shouldn't be something that is seen as a luxury, but something that's a given.
Right. So let's wrap it up with, what is your message to teachers as they head back to school? Maybe particularly music and arts teachers that sometimes do feel marginalized. We keep coming back to that silo, or at least I keep coming back to that silo point. What's your back to school message? A lot of schools started this week, and teachers are back in full force, like you said, with those 30 sets of eyes looking at them. What's your message?
Well, I think whether it's a music teacher or any other subject, I think the message is that what teachers do matters every day. And to the music and arts teachers specifically, who often feel that they're being marginalized or sidelined in conversations, I would try to remind them that what they do is often the heartbeat of the school, and that that's seen in so many different ways. Maybe when a family comes in for the first time and they get to see their child on stage and performing, or when they walk down a hallway and it's lined with student artwork. Those are the kinds of things that build community and bring us closer. And I would want teachers to know that their work matters and that they are building the very things that we need for students to thrive in life. Not only the teamwork and the persistence and the perseverance that we would see posters about, but also how to find joy. And how to be creative, not just consumers of music and art, but also creators of it. And that is indispensable, and so are they.
I love it. Well, Dr. Carrie Rowe, thank you for joining us, and we'll say trombonist turned Acting Secretary of Education, but we'll keep trombonist on the top.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for being with us. Appreciate your time. And thank you all for being with us on this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. We'll see you next time.